Hello, my good feline friends or friends of felines. It's me, Jackson, here with Dr. Rachel Wallach of Oaks Veterinary Urgent Care in Agoura Hills, California. I always panic right in the middle of that. Anyhow, today we're going to be talking about the very, very, very important topic of pet insurance, which we both feel really strongly about. And hopefully by the end of watching this, you're going to feel really strongly about it as well. Where do we start? Get insurance?
Get pet insurance.
Yeah.
That would be my advice.
Everyone knows that the cost of healthcare in general has gone up.
Expensive.
Whether you've gone to a human doctor or a veterinarian, it goes up. And I think we've gotten to the point where it's a given that humans have insurance at this point. It's not so much with animals. And I don't know are you getting the same feedback that I would get where it feels like a luxury or it feels like it's an instant, like you have to talk people into it?
I think I have to explain it to people and why it's beneficial. And I think that conversation is not happening enough, maybe with people in their primary care veterinarians. But once it's explained, people are usually pretty good about signing up.
Is it vet to vet in terms of who takes insurance, or does everyone have to take insurance?
You pay up front and insurance reimburses you. So it's not a vet to vet thing. It's not like human medicine where they're like, we don't take your insurance.
Out of network.
Yes, you're out of network. It's not like that at all. You seek veterinary care and you submit to insurance and insurance reimburses you. So it has nothing to do with the veterinarian. What it does have to do with is whether you're going for prophylactic care, like vaccines, your annual wellness checkup, versus whether you're going for illness or injury. I think, if you know that you're going to be adopting an animal, once you've been approved for adopting that animal, starting your pet insurance, Don't put it off. It literally takes 5 minutes to do.
Let's talk about how insurance works.
Okay. When your pet has an emergency, your pet insurance will reimburse you. So it's a really good situation for everybody, because what happens is you'll take your pet to the vet, you will get the care that they need, you'll submit your bill to insurance, and insurance will contact us for the medical record, and then insurance will pay you back.
Right.
So it means that pets get care, it means that you get your money back, and it means that veterinarians get paid. So full circle. So you'll go to an insurance website and you'll sign your pet up online, and you can apply for a quote. So if you want to compare, there is a waiting period. So that's to prevent insurance companies from not having people sign up the same day that their pet is ill. So there's a little bit of a buffer period oftentimes, but basically there's two parts to insurance. There's your deductible. So that's the money that is you're paying out of pocket until your insurance is going to cover the rest. And then there's the percentage of care covered. Okay. So for example, a plan can have a $250 deductible and then cover 90% of care. That would mean you would be responsible for the first $250 of care. And then they would cover 90% of the bill. So if your bill was $100 and you've already, let's say, paid your deductible, they're going to pay you back $90. Okay, so that's pretty good.
Yeah.
And the reason why I recommend you play around with numbers is sometimes it's better to have a higher deductible. So you're paying, let's say, $750 out of pocket, but your coverage is higher. So 90% coverage.
Those two things usually go hand in hand. Higher deductible means you can
lower rate. Lower monthly rate.
Yeah.
So that's why I say play with those things. But if you can, get your 90% coverage. Because when you start to get into those high numbers, so like when my dog developed postoperative complications and needed additional things, we ended up paying over $31,000. But insurance reimbursed 90% of that. Okay. And my deductible was $750. So ultimately, I was on the hook for just over $3,000. At the end of that,
that's
right? It was the difference between him being able to have those interventions or not. That's the way it works. And you can play around with quotes from different companies. There can be a lot of information, and I know people like to do their due diligence and go through things, and there's not enough time in the day. I always tell people, just sign up.
Yeah.
Go to Healthy Paws, sign up, and then that buys you time to look around, to do your research, because you're still covered. And then if you want to switch it, switch the plan.
Yeah, what a
But
great point.
at least have it on board. It takes 2 minutes and then you're done. And then when you have forgotten to do your research or life has gotten in the way, et cetera, and you find yourself with an animal in need, you have it.
It's such a great point.
I want to strongly encourage people who rescue animals, adopt out animals, basically home animals in any fashion, to look at starting animals on policies.
Yeah.
And the benefit it has for both the rescues and also for the animals and the adopters. And then in addition to that, there are some policies that will cover animals right on adoption day. So there's ones to look into. So it may not actually cost you as a rescue anything, but it will ensure that your animals are getting the care that they need.
What are the other things that, if you had to think about other things when you're shopping for insurance, that you would want to be looking for?
The ability to maintain that plan. So let's say your finances changed or you were out of a job and you were trying to save money. The ability to still maintain that pet insurance, because there are some people who are like, I'm going to have the best of everything. The most expensive dog food, the most expensive insurance policy, the most expensive this, that, and the other. But I want to make sure that it's maintainable, even if your status changes. So I know that if my financial status changes or I need to save on money, I can still pay for insurance. Because if you let insurance lapse, and then your animal develops a condition, it's not going to be covered, and it's not going to, and you're going to kick yourself.
And also the getting older thing. That's the thing.
Yeah.
I mean, there are, and this is something for you to look into, that there are different age cutoffs for different insurance companies. For some, and I can't remember exactly which company was off the top of my head, their cutoff for being insured in the first place was 8 years old for a dog. And I forgot what it was for a cat. But that is pretty young considering. I mean, I think, again, Healthy Paws, I'm not exactly sure, but I thought it was like 11 or 12 or something like that.
I'm pretty sure it's 12 for Healthy Paws, or it was the last time I checked.
Which is reasonable, I think, I mean, not perfect, and we have plenty of seniors who need to get adopted, and it's tough, but at least it's pushing it out there a little bit more, which I think is important.
The other thing, too, is if you have a dog or cat at a certain age, 90% coverage will stop being offered at a certain age, and you won't be able to get it. But if you sign them up when you get them and they're young, then you're grandfathered in. So all my animals have 90% coverage because I've maintained my pet insurance.
Right.
Another thing is our companies like Care Credit, which is a prepaid credit card that's used for medical care. It has a 0 interest rate for a period of time. Some clinics offer 6 months, some offer 12. We offer 12. And
that's from clinic to clinic?
It's clinic to clinic,
I didn't even know
because
that.
we get dinged. We have to pay taxes on people who use Care Credit.
Right.
So some clinics try to reduce their costs that they're taking on.
Got it.
But that medical credit card is available for both your health and an animal's health. So let's say like your cat was sneezing and then you needed to have a root canal. So you can use it for both. And once you've paid that credit card back, that balance is available again for you to use.
Yeah. Which is great.
And if your credit's not good enough to get a balance on it, have a family member, a friend, somebody who can vouch for you to do it.
And again, just to plug the insurance, from my experience anyway, and I think you have the same thing, you get that money back really quickly. Yeah. So if somebody's spotting you money, and a lot of times if they're spotting you money, it's a good deal of money, they're going to get it back really quickly. Like the quickest I've ever gotten that money back was 3 business days, and we had the money back, which is incredible when you think about it,
Yeah. The other important tip is listing a breed. And I know everybody loves to say, well, my cat is part Maine Coon and my cat is part Bengal, but there is a benefit to being just a good old Heinz 57 mutt. And that will actually lower your insurance rates monthly because you have a wider genetic pool. So there's less of a chance of them developing a breed-related condition. Having a wider genetic pool dilutes some of those breed-related characteristics we see. So for example, like Bengals and Maine Coons are very prone to a specific type of cardiac disease. But if we dilute out that genetic pool, we reduce our risk of having those things. Right. So I know you're really proud that they're whatever they are or part are, but for insurance purposes and medical purposes, you're going to want to list your pet as a mutt. Another thing too is you can go to your car insurance or your house insurance and ask them if they offer pet insurance. And oftentimes they do, and you don't know about it. And they will offer a bundle discount.
Yeah, and that would be, because we've talked about this also off camera, which is there's a limited number of underwriters for all of these insurance companies. There's really a handful of underwriters for most of them. So if you start looking at the human insurance aspect of it, unless you ask, it maybe the same underwriters and that bundle, I didn't even think of that either.
The other thing too is having a spayed or neutered animal is going to get you a discount. Because there are a lot of issues that come along with being an intact animal, both behavioral, both medical, and then also there's on the breeding side of things. If people do decide to breed, there are a lot of complications.
Sure. Like you needed any other reason to spay or neuter your animals, there you go. There's something else. One of the things that we can touch on, is there any downside to insurance? Is there anything that you can think of that would be an argument to not get pet insurance?
I guess it depends. Like, let's say you're adopting a senior pet with multiple pre-existing conditions. Some insurances won't cover an animal over a certain age.
Yeah.
Most insurances won't cover an animal with a pre-existing condition. Well, they won't cover the pre-existing condition.
Right.
So in that sense, you might be better off putting funds aside as an emergency account, but you can always investigate those two options. A financial advisor online had said, oh, well, instead of buying insurance, set that money aside, put it in a high yield savings, and I was like, okay, but who actually plans for that?
Yeah.
Most people don't have the foresight. And then what happens is they come to the clinic and they're like, oh, I was meaning to do that, but.
And one of the things that, it was funny. I was like, what argument can you do against? And I'm going right back for it. But another thing that's always, the argument against that is in the moment, at the clinic, knowing that not only do we not have to think about the procedures and all that and the money, there's also we were talking about this before, how most of the apps right now that are associated with these insurance companies, you're scanning that. I scan it standing there at the desk, the invoice, and within a couple of days we're getting checks.
Yeah.
I mean, it that fast.
Or direct deposit.
Yeah. Right. It's so funny. I was like, let's think of arguments against it. And listen, if you wind up just stuffing money in the mattress, do it every month. Make sure that you never have that panicky moment where you don't know whether you're going to be able to afford care for your animals. Now, I know that you guys have always gotten on me in the past for not naming names, not saying brands that I like because I want to make sure that I'm unbiased and good advocate. No, not this time. Now we're going to start naming some brands because there are companies out there that I think have been doing a really, really solid job for a long time. And you've already mentioned the first one, which was Trupanion.
Yep. Trupanion Insurance has this program where if you sign up for Trupanion, the veterinarian can submit the claim at the veterinary office. So that means the vet gets paid directly and clients are only responsible for their portion. So their deductible and whatever percentage.
On the spot, you're saying?
On the spot. So that way they don't have to have, let's say, $1,000 up front. Trupanion has an app where they can pay the clinic directly and you're only responsible for what's left over. It's definitely a more expensive pet insurance to have, but if you know that you don't have those funds up front to cover before you get reimbursed, then that's a really beneficial thing. Or if you don't want to be out of pocket, that's another beneficial thing. The other thing too is some pet insurance companies will cover animals if they've gone a year without the issue. So for example, let's say they were born with a hole in the heart and they had that fixed. They'll cover cardiac disease that comes later if they've gone a year without cardiac issues. Or, for example, I had 3 naughty animals yesterday who had eaten things that they weren't supposed to. And there are pet insurance companies that will cover gastrointestinal obstruction if it's been a year since the last one.
Oh, really? So if they keep getting in trouble, then...
Yeah, and we do see repeat offenders.
Right. But that, when you think about that alone, and Seriously, if you've had a kitten or a puppy before, I don't know how you get through it without them eating something they weren't supposed to eat. But the cost of coming in, potentially exploratory surgery, but at least the imaging and everything else, there shouldn't be this reason why you would even think twice about going to the vet, which again, the insurance part of things just feels like that's another reason why it would become no-brainy, that if you're struggling in that moment financially, but you've been paying for insurance, you can breathe around the whole thing.
Sure.
And that's important.
What insurance do you use?
We use Healthy Paws, and we're really happy with it. I've never seen a reason to go away from it. That said, you then find out something like, well, Trupanion offers this, or Nationwide offers this, and Healthy Paws might not rise up in that one place, but it evens out for us. And also there's a flexibility in terms of the plans. Like, not everybody offers the same combination of deductible and percentages. We found, at least with Healthy Paws and Trupanion, I think is also like this, where there is that wide range that allows you to feel a sense of power in the whole decision making.
I also use Healthy Paws, and I use them because I can afford the multiple animals that I have listed on them. So that's another thing to think about. Are you just insuring one dog? Are you insuring 2 cats? Do you get a sibling discount? And
is there such a thing?
There is, yeah.
There is not.
Yeah.
There's a sibling discount?
Not on Healthy Paws, but there is on some insurance policies a sibling discount.
Look at that.
Yeah.
That's pretty
And they
cool.
don't have to be related, like genetically related.
What?
I just mean like they're in your same household. Like you adopt another animal, they're siblings. So you have, you know.
Got it.
Yeah.
Interesting. I'm sure there are lots of folks who are thinking about, okay, well, what is the cost? We're talking about deductibles and percentages. Is there a range that we should be looking at?
I mean, I think each company is different. I know that for my cats on Healthy Paws, and I have cats that range from 4 years old to 9 years old. They cost between $23.16 a month to I think like $32 a month. So that's something that's affordable for me.
And that's with the 90%.
That's with the 90% coverage. I've changed their out of pocket to be higher, but it's still with a 90% coverage. Now, there are some companies, and again, as your pet ages or as costs change in the field, your insurance company will notify you that costs are rising. There are companies that are way more expensive, or if you have a special breed, they can be way more expensive. So my friend was just notified that next year insurance coverage for her young dog of a specific breed will be $750 per month.
What?
I know. I was like,
oh my God.
Okay, well, if that's the case, I would be putting away a certain amount of money. Yeah.
That's crazy.
But like my 11-year-old's 90% insurance with Healthy Paws, I think, is like $90 a month.
And that, I mean, again, that makes sense.
It didn't start as that. It started like $40-something. He's a mixed breed. There is poodle in him, but he is a mixed breed. And now that he's aged and gotten older, his coverage is $90-something a month.
And that part makes sense. It makes sense because they are going to see the vet more often when they get older. You and I were talking about this before. The price of vet care has gone up, and it will continue to. And so
the price of medical care has gone up.
Period. Exactly.
And medication.
And I just really, my prescription costs have, everyone knows this, that if you're on anything yourself. And that just seems really onerous to me, that the idea of just capping it in a year, I mean, if you're like either one of us, you wind up with a $30,000 bill. We just wound up with a $10,000 bill a couple weeks ago. That would have blown it, and we just can't make those assumptions anymore. And also, I mean, on the good side, it does mean also that the profession itself is advancing.
Yeah.
I mean, there are things that we could do now that even 5-10 years ago were hard to think about.
Well, the other thing too, so people are asking for better medical care, more advanced medical care. And that's something that's really cool. We also have this generation of people who are deciding to have fur children and not human children. And they are going to devote everything they have to those fur children. And I applaud you. And not just them, but people are demanding more advanced care, and the veterinary industry is responding.
Yeah.
And as we grow, unfortunately, costs grow. Having an MRI machine is very expensive.
Yeah.
Not even just having an MRI machine, making the entire thing lead-proof around your MRI machine is very expensive. So,
and I just got to say again, a lot of this comes down to personal experience, and obviously we both had a lot of clients. And the idea that you would not do that extra test because it is really expensive is heart-wrenching. It really is. It's something that you just don't want to be in that position. And I would have been 5 times over in the past 5 years where we would have had to go, I want that last bit of imaging, and especially when you're dealing with cancer, the more exact you can get, the more you can sleep at night. And speaking of sleeping at night, knowing that you're not on the hook for a CT, I just paid $5 for a CT. With insurance, I didn't, but yeah.
Look at how the companies cover. So most companies will do a yearly deductible. Okay, so for my pets, I have a yearly deductible for each one of $750. Once I've hit that $750, any of the other costs now are under that 90% coverage window. Some pet insurance policies like Embrace have a new deductible for each medical condition.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Huh.
So I find that particularly annoying because it means that you're paying, my cat was vomiting, so I took him in. I'm paying $250 deductible. And my cat is limping, so I took him in, and now I'm having to pay another deductible. So for some people, they don't mind that. Other people don't.
I would mind that.
Yeah. There are also insurance companies that have yearly or lifetime limits.
Right.
So some insurance companies will say, we will cover $10,000 over the course of your pet's lifetime, which at this point in time, not worth
exactly.
it. And some will say, oh, we'll only cover up to $10,000 a year.
Even
Again,
then.
maybe back in the day or where you were living, like when I was living in the United Kingdom, having that at a certain degree, nothing costs over a certain amount. So it was not an issue. That has changed since COVID.
Off the table.
There are also some risky behaviors that will not be covered, if there's consequences of them under pet insurance. So you should check. Sometimes it involves like what you feed your animals or how you feed them. It can involve declining care or doing something similarly. It's important to read the fine print. Also, there are certain breeds we know that are prone to certain conditions. So some insurance policies will not cover them for the first year that you have insurance.
Oh, that's interesting.
Yeah. So a lot of things where, like knees, blowing out your knees, insurance will say you have to have insurance for a year before that.
Yeah. I mean, you're going to run into fine print as you would with
Anywhere.
There's a lot of other insurance companies out there. They're going to be really strong in some cases and maybe not as strong as other companies in others. There are different plans that cover things like training or behavior work if they're certified. In terms of brands, companies, we've obviously brought up Trupanion and Healthy Paws a number of times. Good reason, because they rise to the top in most categories. So, in terms of what you don't get covered, if the animal that you adopted has a history of what? Would they be excluded?
Let's say a history of intervertebral disc disease. That's a big one. But basically, degeneration of the spine and back pain. So though that wouldn't be covered. So when they have flare-ups or issues like that.
We know that certain dog breeds, hip dysplasia almost comes with the territory with certain breeds like that.
And insurance knows about that. And so that is going to make your insurance more expensive. It's going to limit some of the coverage of insurance. That does not mean that you should not get pet insurance. You should still absolutely get pet insurance. But those things come with their own price. Sort of strings and price. Yeah. The other thing too is it also comes down to what you and your veterinarian discuss. For me, I'm always like, oh, that's a lovely Bengal cross. That's me being obviously trying to make sure that people can get coverage and afford to keep coverage on their animals. Yeah. If you were to do a DNA test on your purebred whatever, you will find that there are other breeds in there.
Yep.
Okay. And that is because breeders breed in other breeds to make animals look a specific way.
So, knowing that if you do that DNA test, could you then claim that your purebred Persian is not a Persian? Because if you go far enough back with the widening of the genetic pool, you're going to find something else.
Yeah.
Have you found anything that hides in the fine print a lot that you want people to look for?
I guess one of the big ones is dogs and ACLs.
Oh, wow.
So that's a big one just because
They will like literally write out the ACL?
in the first year that you have the insurance.
Got it.
And there are certain breeds or breed crosses that are very prone to tearing their cruciate ligaments. And those are expensive surgeries. And usually once they tear one within a year, they tear the other.
One.
But that's why, we know those things.
Let's say you tear an ACL and then you find there's hip problems on the other side because of been compensating on that. Would that be something that would be ruled out because of the ACL?
No.
Cool. Good.
No.
I just wondered if the domino effect was considered by...
No. And that's the other thing is like post-op complications from a condition can still be covered. So it depends on the insurance agency and how they do it. But a lot of times we'll see animals with post-operative complications from a procedure, and that's its own new condition.
Is there, by and large, are there things that you wish as a vet, because you have to deliver the news to folks, like that were covered in a more complete way? Because dental is the first thing I can think of. I mean, dental is not usually...
Dental is a hard one. Dental is definitely a hard one. I would say whether it's coverage or it's an understanding of coverage. I'm not completely sure. So I think the things that have you keep your pet well, prophylactic care. So like the dentals, like the vaccines, like deworming, those things are not covered by insurance. So I think just having a basic understanding that to do a dental cleaning on a mouth under anesthesia that has never brushed their teeth, or even if you do brush their teeth, it's still going to be expensive. And it's expensive because you're doing something that is an anesthetic procedure, and it takes skill and time and medications. Right. There are insurance policies. I think Embrace and Trupanion both cover some wellness care to a degree, and you can pick. So that's one. I don't know. I feel like the coverage is fairly complete. Dental is a hard one. Dental is one of those things where if you get the pet insurance right as you get an animal, which I highly recommend, especially if you know you're adopting an animal, whether they're a puppy and kitten or they're an adult animal, get the pet insurance the second you know you're getting the animal, because then you finish that wait period. And when they're in your care, if they're sick, you're going to the vet. And a lot of times that new stress of new environment, new exposure to animals, et cetera, you can see things, and pet insurance is going to cover those things. But if your animal has pet insurance from being a young animal or from when you get them, then if they break their tooth, then that dental's covered.
Right.
Those are the things that are covered, and that is important. The problem is that people come into the vet clinic, their animal has something going on that's big that requires us to do big interventions, and they're like, well, I want to sign up for pet insurance. And I was like, that's great, but you're too late for this issue. Right. So we have to address this issue. Now, that being said, pet insurance still covers a lot of things that whatever the issue that they're there for is not. So my dog, sorry, healthy paws, but my dog is about to have like 3 root canals. Yeah. And my pet insurance is going to cover it because I got him insurance basically the minute I got him. Yeah. And now that he's 11, he's grandfathered into the 90% coverage policy. That policy is not offered to older animals usually.
When you adopt them, if you adopted them.
If you adopt an older animal, there's usually a percentage of coverage. And so, but he's grandfathered in because I've had it his entire life. And now it's going to cover, his root canals. It's going to cover his trip to the ophthalmologist because he's got cataracts that are developing. Yeah. And he's got a benign mass that's growing on his backside, and it's going to cover, but it's getting much larger and it's in an area where it might interfere with him using the restroom. So it's going to cover those things. And those 3 things I can tell you right off the bat are going to cost at least $10,000.
Yes. Yeah. And I think if you think about the argument that somebody would have, this is why I'm not going to get pet insurance, you would say, well, it doesn't cover yearly wellness exams. It doesn't. You should plan for the fact that having an animal family member means there's going to be costs, and insurance is not the cure-all for everything. It is for what exactly we're talking about.
I did think of one thing that I think insurance could do better, but I don't know if it's feasible. And that is, back in the day, insurance used to cover prescription veterinary diets. They no longer, most of them don't cover those now. But for animals that need to be on prescription diets lifelong, like cats with urinary crystals who are prone to obstruction, right, that can become expensive. So in the sense that I think even if insurance could cover a portion of food, because that is the treatment, that is the management. But there are definitely other things that are covered. So your animal's vomiting, they have diarrhea, they're just not acting themselves. It means you can go in and have blood work and get peace of mind. It means you can go in and get medication and have some sort of comfort or care. So I keep pet insurance for my pets because I know how expensive veterinary care is. And I know there are things that I can't do myself. And also there's no reason that I shouldn't get paid for the supplies that I use at the clinic on my own pets if I'm paying for pet insurance. Mm-hmm. But for me, September of 2020, my 6-year-old dog decided to wake up one morning and his gallbladder ruptured. Yeah. And that's not a surgery I can do. It was a very scary thing, and it's got a very high complication rate. But I took him to the emergency hospital and they said, yes, we can absolutely do this surgery. It's a 50-50. It's $10,000 deposit. So I have a care credit card. I was able to put down the money, get him to have surgery, and I only had to worry about him and his recovery because I was being paid back.
Right.
Okay. So I didn't have to worry that by the end of the month, I wouldn't have the funds to pay off the card or anything like that. I could focus just on him and his care and helping him get through it. And that was really important.
And I'm not sure, what about, if I remember correctly, I don't think that insurance covers physical therapy.
Oh, you're wrong.
Really?
Yeah, there's chiropractic care, there's acupuncture.
Acupuncture, you're right. We just got it covered for our last 3 animals that needed acupuncture, which I thought was like a revelation. I don't know if that's new or not.
No, it's not new.
Really?
Yeah.
Kick ass, man.
Yeah.
See? I mean, because that's the thing, when we talk about what is the treatment, I think it's really, I'm actually still hyper impressed that acupuncture is covered and chiropractic is covered.
Yeah, I think a lot of people don't look and read at those things and then realize that those are covered because it's in the fine print. But that's a really big one.
It's a big one. I mean, I can't, again, granted, both of us have had a lot of animals in our lives, but I can, right off the top of my head, think of 3 of our guys who eventually, and this is, again, great argument from the second you adopt them, because age happens, take my word for it, and you have to know that, especially in bigger dogs, arthritis is going to happen. I mean, hip dysplasia was one of those things that we had to deal with, and I swear to you, physical therapy and acupuncture, it extended her life by a couple of years, and to know that's there as well. Look, it sounds like we're just spouting about animal insurance. We are. It's something that you should just do it. Just do it. It is one of those things. We even sat here going, why wouldn't you get it? Okay, fine. If you got something against the whole concept, put money under the pillow and do it every month. Just do that, so you never have to be in that painful place where you're making a decision about life or death sometimes because of the funds. I mean, if you're anything like me, I can overthink something so hardcore, and then it's 6 months later. And what Rachel's saying, I'm saying it as well. Don't think about it. Get the insurance. The second you adopt somebody, there is a lot that you could be looking at. There are some of the companies that, because you can go to online and you start filling out the thing itself. And then there's all of these choices to be made in some of the companies. I thought some of them were a little unscrupulous the way they were gathering information. That said, do it anyway. Just sign up, do it. You can cancel it later. If you hear about a company that's reputable, according to other people that you know, friends and family swear by a certain one, just do it. And then you can spend time on the fine print. Anything that's going to cause you to hold back is just not a good enough reason. It really, I mean, Rachel does a lot of rescues. She's being kind of mild about this, a lot of adopting and caring for animals. And we got kittens right in there to prove it. But to write something like that into a contract when you're not really writing a whole lot else in there, this is that big one. And it's that big a deal. And it's almost like I tell you guys, like if you're going to catify your house, you're going to start putting stuff up there. You can easily do the paralysis by analysis, and all of a sudden you got nothing. And you start with a bed in the window. Just put a bed in the window, and from then on you can start thinking about the whole house. And I'm sure you have to have difficult conversations a lot with people about the care that their animal needs, and the idea that you would have to have that conversation based on how much money is available to do a procedure is so gut-wrenching, I would imagine, I mean, especially in your position. And that's another thing. The idea that you would have to have that conversation about life or death, potentially, based on available funds is, believe us, something you don't want. And that, from a personal standpoint, unfortunately, in our household, we've had a lot of cancer in the past couple of years. First of all, hearing that your animal companion has cancer is enough for you to take in. Then you think of all the diagnostics, all of the imaging, and then forget about the treatment on top of that, chemo. I'm talking about me and my family, it would have broken us. There's not a chance that we could have afforded everything that came our way. And there have been many, many times where we're like, thank God for the insurance, because there's no way otherwise.
Absolutely.
Insurance has saved the lives of a lot of the animals in my life. I think Rachel has the same exact experience, and we know so many people who fit into that same category where it just wouldn't have been possible to put out, like you said, $30,000. If that's what it costs, you shouldn't have to decide how much you love your animal based on the money. And insurance makes it so that you don't ever have to go there again. All right, folks, get insurance. Any of the companies that we've been talking about, we'll put links down in the description. Don't forget, you want to see more content like this, it'd be great if you subscribe to the channel. It'd be wonderful if you told us that you like this kind of thing, but more importantly, have a conversation about it in the comments. We want to hear what you have to say about insurance. Good experience is bad, just put it down there in the comments. The conversation is worth it. All right, everybody. Till next time, thank you very much to Rachel, and we will see you soon. Light, love, and mojo to you. Meow.